Hello. We recently heard from a military spouse who was also a caregiver to a child with different needs who asked us, can you try to incorporate more adversity into your offerings so families like mine feel included? That request had a deeper meaning. She felt like she didn't belong. Does that resonate with you? Whether you're a caregiver or not, being seen and being heard are important. During Blue Star Welcome Week, we want you to feel both. To that military caregiver spouse, we heard you, and today we're discussing the importance of your well-being. With us are Dayton Chapter Director Dr. Geri Maples, Blue Star Families 2021 Caregivers Cohort participant Shayna, as well as Blue Star Associates Director of Welcome Programs, Vicky Perkins. Hello and welcome to you all today.
Hello.
Hi. Geri, Shaina, and Vicky, we appreciate your time today and look forward to really providing a great experience for our families. So let's just jump right in. Vicky, this is a busy week for you and your team. Before we begin, tell us about your role at Blue Star Families and the importance of Welcome Week, which is why we're here today.
Yes. Thanks, Adrian. So my role at Blue Star Families, I work on all of our welcome programs. So any program happening in community, sometimes virtual as well, where we can invite our military families to take part so they feel connected in their community. And that can be through a variety of programs. We have our Blue Star books, we have our Blue Star caregivers. And it really is central to our theme for Welcome Week, which is we know over the summer that we have over 600 families that PCS. They're moving to new communities. They're often not moving on military installations, but they're moving into neighborhoods, new neighborhoods where they're not connected. They don't have friends yet. They're learning the lay of the land, where schools might be for their families. And so we dedicate this 1 week, even though we're hoping it happens over the whole entire year, to welcoming our military families. Giving them that sense of belonging, letting them know that we're happy that they're moving to these communities and that there's a place for them there when they get there and get settled too. So
I love to hear that. And I love the potential of what Welcome Week will become in the future. And it's something that's definitely brought us all together today. And it's important that we get to know each other to create a connection to your stories. Geri, will you share how your journey as a caregiver began?
Yes. Well, let me start off by saying hello and thanks for having me. And Shaina, it's good to see you again. And Vicky, I love working with you so much. My caregiver journey began in 2004. My husband, Robert, was serving overseas in Operation Iraqi Freedom. And he was in the Ohio Army National Guard as a military police officer. He was being treated in Iraq for post-traumatic stress disorder that was obviously visible to his leadership and folks on the ground there. And he was also being treated for some physical complications with his heart and other things. So when he came home, we went through that honeymoon period where, we're all excited, dad's home, my husband's home, those types of things. We actually had a brand new wedding. I don't talk about it that much, but we had a brand new wedding about 3 weeks after he came home. And then, getting settled back into our life and reintegrated back to being a family. And I started really seeing these things develop, angry outbursts, physical things that were visible. And I called a hotline that I had called when he was overseas in Iraq for some assistance right after he got held over again for a fourth time. That was kind of hard for us to hear. So I called this hotline. I called it again and I was told, I can't help you. Your husband's out of the service. I can't help you. I knew right then that I was alone and I felt helpless. And that was 18 years ago now. So it's been a long time.
And we'll get more to your journey a little bit later, and what you did to find a place to no longer feel alone. So there is hope, and we look forward to talking about that soon. For now, Shayna, you're a caregiver to a child, and we are learning more and more about the importance of early intervention. Please share your story and how it's impacted your family, if you will.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So our story began at separation from the Army after 12 years of service. My husband at the time was separated from service, and my daughter was experiencing some behavioral issues at school. We did not know what was going on at the time. And a lot of it we attributed to separation from the military. We didn't know what was going on, or maybe it was troubles with, his experiences in that transition from military service into the civilian world. We were going into a civilian community. We were not in a military community. And a lot of the folks in that area did not understand our unique perspectives, what we were going through as a military veteran family. So it was a really interesting experience, and it actually took an entire community of providers to be able to identify what was going on. And luckily for us, we were surrounded by an incredible community of folks who were able to help us through this experience and get us to where we needed to go. Without them, I don't know what I would have done. But it was through this early identification, it was through this community of people who had an open mind and were willing to understand and try to understand what our unique experiences and perspectives were, that we were able to identify that my daughter was experiencing manifestations of autism. And for girls, it's a little bit harder to identify, generally if they are not presenting behaviors that are typical to what they call the stereotypical male presentation. So we were going through all of that while at the same time going through the VA caregiver program, and also going through the VA determination. So we were going through a double whammy at the same time. So it was quite the experience. So within the same year, we did a full transition from the Army, from active duty Army. He got his service-related rating. We also ended up having, my daughter diagnosed with autism, and I had to give up my entire world, or future, what I imagined my future to be. So at the time, I had been completing my undergraduate in communications, and I ended up having to just pause on all of that and going into my master's program in technical communications, and gave up on work to stay home to spend 30 hours per week in therapy with my daughter, who needed to have early intervention services. So all of this was a really isolating and just a very intense experience, all to occur at one time. And for us in a new community where we really didn't know anybody, and people didn't really know how to support us either.
Oh, and that's a lot, given the nature of change in itself and transition in itself, but then compounding all of those factors together. So Shayna, what are some of the biggest stressors besides that entire experience that you have as a caregiver? And what are some of the ways you currently try to alleviate that stress?
You know what? I think the compounding stress and strain is a big concern for a lot of us caregivers, and also the compounding stress and strain we put on ourselves. I feel like the caregiver guilt is a real issue that a lot of us suffer from. It feels like there's so many stressors that are coming at us externally, from, socially, from all the things that are on our to-do list, that ever-growing to-do list, right? But then we come in and we place on ourselves even more pressure. And we have all of these expectations for ourselves. I call it the shoulds are our worst enemy, because we keep on saying, well, I should be able to go do this with my family. I should be able to take care of XYZ for my family, and being able to take care of your child. There's also that hashtag mom guilt, and it's just, it's compounded. And so I think that, in addition to the external stressors that come at us in the form of things that I have to do, things that can't wait, but also these extra pieces of doctor's appointments and having to figure out how to advocate for my child at school. This additional pressure I place on myself, and where the heck do I find time to give myself breathing room? So it's giving myself permission to take a break. It's giving myself grace for when things don't go right. And it's also being kind to myself when things aren't perfect. And so I would say those were the biggest factors for me.
I love that you say be kind to yourself, because we talk about, being nice to strangers, treating others how we wish to be treated, but we need to treat ourselves how we wish to be treated first, right? I have to be kind to myself. Geri, you actually have a book series that explores stressors and invisible wounds. Can you tell us what a caregiver toolbox is and why it is so important?
Yes, absolutely. So, just as Shayna kind of gave you a visual into what her life is, you can obviously see that caregiver life and your caregiver journey is filled with a lot of uncertainty. Just about 4 years ago, it'll be 4 years next month, my son fell ill with an incurable illness that is also invisible. And then my daughter fell ill with it as well. So I find myself navigating my veteran and our two kids. As a matter of fact, they're at the doctor right now, both of them together. So it's uncertain things are going to happen. So it's important for caregivers to have tools. So a caregiver toolbox is a resource. It can be a physical resource, or it can be, something that you really can't touch, but it's there. And what it does is it helps us along this journey. It's a tool. It's a box filled with a lot of tools that we have that provides us a peace of mind to know that if things go awry, when I wake up today, I know that I have these resources, or I have this physical thing that I can rely on to manage whatever it is that's going to happen on that particular day. Because I can tell you from personal experience, and I know Shayna can too, that when you wake up, you don't know what the day is going to bring. You don't know what challenges are going to arrive, either with the person you're providing care for, or some other thing that can really just throw your day off kilter, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Can you mention any of those specific tools that someone just should have, staples you should have, no matter if you're A, B, or C, that you should have in your toolbox?
Yes, absolutely. So number one is I highly recommend having a rapid response team in your toolbox, somebody who's going to, that you can pick up the phone and say, hey, this happened and I need your help. And that person or persons, it used to be when my kids were in school, it would be my mom, right? We rely a lot on our moms. That came out in my first book. Moms are great, and they should be in your toolbox, because I would call my mom. Hey, I have to run Robert to the ER. This happened. Can you go get Emily from school? Can you take Shane here? Can you go sit with them, right? I can't tell you how many numerous times I had to take him to the ER at 3 a.m. and had to call my mom, and she had to have that bag ready, right? That bag to come over, and it was her overnight bag, and she knew that, she was going to have to be there. So definitely a rapid response team, whether it's somebody to drive your kids to school or to sit there overnight. Other things are a calendar. I live and breathe by my calendar, and please put your self-care time on your calendar. I cannot stress that enough. And no matter what, don't move it, right? Because just like Shayna was saying earlier, it's important, right? So the other things, a journal. I'm a big Rob Thomas fan. Those that know me know this. And I have my Rob Thomas in my ear time. And he's in my toolbox because, sometimes you get stressed out and you need to take that 5-minute break and just, regroup. So things that you enjoy, put in your toolbox. Things that you need, put in your toolbox, whether they're physical or not. And the other thing I would add is websites, important phone numbers, and community. We have a phenomenal online community that is for our caregivers, whether it's with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation or some other, Vicky's group, whatever that, with Blue Star Families. There's so many communities out there, and we need them. We need them. We need them to vent. We need them to understand. And I cannot say how important it is to have those in your toolbox. So those are just some general ideas.
Let's talk about those support systems, because you spoke a little bit about person-to-person ones, but also emotional ones. But I want to hear from Vicky, because we hear mention of relationships, mentors, and I don't think anyone's said it yet, but like social workers, for example, which, brings us to the programs that are built specifically to help connect those dots, like Elizabeth Dole Foundation, which is one of our partners. But Vicky, you have become a lane of support for caregivers through the Blue Star Families Caregivers Program. Will you explain what that is for those who are listening, perhaps who aren't familiar with it?
Yes. Thank you, Adrian. And I just want to say thank you to Shayna and Geri too for sharing their story. Because I think it's important for people to hear what some of the challenges and struggles are for our caregivers in this community. And we're hearing from two different sides too, which is something I've experienced in our Blue Star Caregivers program, because we are seeing this almost opening of not only are we serving wounded, ill, injured service members, caregivers, but also exceptional family members with special needs. And then we're also seeing where we have caregivers that are caring for aging parents as well, and they're active duty military. And so I think hearing Shayna and Geri's story is a perfect example of why Blue Star Caregivers is important and why I am so dedicated to this program. I'm not solving the problems for our caregivers by any means, but what I do think that we do well is supporting our caregivers. And so you heard that the importance of scheduling in your self-care. And that's what our Blue Star Caregivers program is about. It's asking our caregivers to disconnect, even if it's just for an hour, come to one of our programs and experience that self-care time for you. Experience that peer-to-peer connection, other caregivers in your community that are experiencing some of the same challenges that you might be having, that sharing of resources, because we don't always have all the answers or some of the resources, but your caregivers that are in the community, oh my goodness, they are a wealth of knowledge, and they always have a great example of someone to talk to or someone to go to for certain challenges or things that you're trying to look for. But I can say mostly through this Blue Star Caregivers program and through these events that we do, that we look at cohorts and we bring a group of caregivers together over the course of a year. And so while we know that one event will support a caregiver, if it's just that one event, we like to see them come together multiple times over the year. So they are building those connections with those same caregivers at these same events while learning something is what we're hoping, right? Learning that it's really important to care for yourself, because oftentimes our caregivers are so concerned with the person they're caring for, making sure that their life is together, getting them to their appointments. You heard Shayna talk about the hours she spent at therapy. I'm sure Geri could say the same to the doctor's appointments and taking her husband there. They are constantly caring for someone else and they're not caring for themselves. And so it's really important to me to talk about that, how important it is for them to take that time and to not put it to the wayside because they're caring for everybody else, but to really put themselves first in that situation so that they can make sure that they're healthy and able to care for those that are having challenges in their life along the way. So that's one of my passions for sure, because they do so much work, caring for so many people, serving so many people, and oftentimes just forget about themselves. And a lot of times it's because they don't see themselves as a caregiver, because I'm mom. I'm caring for my child. I'm caring for my husband or my wife, and that's my job. I'm not being a caregiver. But it's important to recognize that they need to take a step back and think about themselves too.
Vicky, it's amazing that you're here in this role. It's obvious and evident that you're quite passionate about it. And I think that translates especially to the experiences of those who participate. And Shaina, maybe since you were part of the 2021 cohort, in what ways did this support you as a caregiver in your experiences?
I think the beauty of it is that it continues to support me and my self-care and wellness. I do recall, from being in that program, being able to be a part of that community, that not only were we able to interact asynchronously on the online community and to be able to connect, and people would ask questions, others would chime in with their answers and their resources. And we were able to get that support, outside of live time or real time, but also these live sessions where we were able to sign on online virtually, which was a huge game changer for me in being able to access supports, because being able to leave, especially when you're caring for a child who might be in therapy, or just your limited energy, you might not be able to necessarily leave the house, and if you do, it's going to require a lot of effort. And at that point, a lot of us are just like, I don't think I want to do that. So it really opened the door to accessing self-care resources for me. And it's something that gave me permission to perform self-care. So I had it on my calendar. There was no way that I was going to reschedule it. It was there. And so I got to go there. I was on my calendar. Nothing else was taking up that time slot. I was able to engage, even though virtually, and I was able to take that time solely to myself and also utilize those resources and take any skills that I brought back from those individual sessions and utilize them moving forward. So a perfect example is I continue to use my yoga mat and stuff, right? So I'm able to continue that self-care practice and continue to utilize those skills that I learned in those sessions and take them forward, and to continue to hopefully, expand upon my wellness practice.
That's amazing. And for any of you, you can choose to answer this, but if somebody's listening and they're like, I keep hearing this, self-care is so important. I don't have time for that. What can we say right now that might just get them to change their minds and take that extra effort to make time for themselves?
You're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You are your care recipient's first line of defense. And it may sound cliche when you say that, put the oxygen mask on yourself before the person next to you. It is entirely the truth. You need to be able to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you're taking care of yourself. Yeah. You are worth it. Advocate for yourself as you advocate for your care recipient.
And Adrian, I would like to add to that, because I hear this a lot, is self-care costs money, and it doesn't. Oh my goodness, it doesn't. Self-care there's so many different ways. Walking outside your front door and experiencing the benefits that nature has to offer, of being outside, just taking deep breaths, taking a moment to just reconnect, re-energize, even if it's only 5 minutes, that is self-care. So don't ever feel like self-care means I have to spend money, or I have to leave my house, or it's going to take so much time. It can happen right in your home, right outside of your home, and you'll experience the benefits of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to say ditto to about what both of them said, because there's nothing more I can add. But it really is, it's important. It's just important. You got to take care of yourself so that you can take care of others.
Regardless of your situation, you can take some goals away from our topic today. Whether you're a caregiver or not, identify the stressors in your life, create a toolbox to help you manage those stresses, and reach out to find support, whether that be, a program or Rob Thomas. Relationships matter. And Blue Star Families is here to support you in the effort to build them. Thank you to our guests, Geri, Shayna and Vicky, for this heartfelt conversation today. I think we could sit here probably all day and really just talk about this, but and maybe we'll come back and have everyone back. So we would love to hear from other caregivers about some tools and resources that you find helpful. So please leave us a comment in the chat or reach out to us. Reach out to Vicky if you're interested in learning more about the Blue Star Families Caregiver Program, or if you're in the area, reach out to Geri, one of our chapter directors. Remember, Blue Star Welcome Week is happening now. And even though it's a week, like Vicky said, it's really a lifestyle. And we hope you can carry this forward throughout the year. Thank you again from everyone at Blue Star Families, and have a great day.